evening, student. Welcome to our radio production introduction. As per the course outline, our first topic is on the introduction to radio production. And of course, as we say, radio is transmission of signals by modulation or electromagnetic waves. What do we mean by this? Of course, this is radio studio. We are in radio studio right now, and I'm in front of a microphone, a mixer, and a computer. These are some of the most important gadgets that radio presenters, whoever is working in radio, actually uses to ensure that the transmission of the information is done properly. When you talk of transmission of signals, we are talking about transmission of signals. We are talking about the process of sending, propagating, and receiving an analog or digital information signal over physical point to point. What do we mean by this? If maybe later on you'll be able to see the diagram when I send the note properly. The radio frequencies, the presenter. I am the presenter here. I speak to this microphone. Of course, my sound is converted into electromagnetic waves. So the electrical image is formed within this microphone, and it is transmitted to the mixer. And when it reaches to the mixer or whatever gadget that you're using, there are people who use sound card. There are so many other things that studios use. What happened? It's amplified with what you call amplitude modulator. And what actually the amplitude modulator does, it modulates the waves such that they can be able to be carried. So what you call, they are modulated through what you call carrier wave modulator. Whether it's an AM signal, whether it's a digital signal, etc. Then it is taken to a transmitter. So from a microphone. So my sound, or the presenter's voice, leave in the mouth, it enters in the microphone. So the sound, when it enters in this microphone, it is taken into now the computer or whatever gadget you're using, where it's a weak electrical signal. So it has to be amplified with an amplifier. So the weak signal from the microphone, it has to be amplified by something, be it the mixer, be it whatever gadget you're using. This because the incoming signal is actually flatter than the signal that is going out of me as a person. So you'll see when you are recording, sometimes if it's recording in the computer, you'll see maybe the different types of waves that will be coming, and like these ones. So this, remember, we actually say that sound actually have like 4 properties, but 3 are the major ones. We have what we call the amplitude, that is the height of the wave. We also have what we call the frequency, that is the number of waves that the waves occurs. And then we have what we call the wavelength, that is the distance between a point A and a similar point A in a similar wave. So once now the wave has, on whatever sound has been converted into an electrical image, it has to be taken to carrier wave generator, and the wave generator create a high frequency radio signal. So the frequency of this signal is many times greater than the frequency of the audio wave. This signal will carry the audio over the air. Remember, we actually say that once we transmit, or we take the sound to a transmitter, this is actually taken through all over the air. So, and there it finds a modulator, and a modulator actually is to ensure that if it's an FM signal or is it an FM signal or a digital signal, it is modulated so that it can be transmitted. So the carrier signal amplitude is altered and modulated to reflect the changes in audio signal amplitude. So if this is a signal, it will have to be modulated depending. If it's an FM signal, it will have to be modulated to an AM amplitude. If it's a In FM, it has to be done to be frequency modulation. Then from there, the signal is taken to what we call the radio signal, travels to antenna, and of course the signal creates a corresponding electromagnetic field in the radio wave. These radio waves move outward in all direction. So once it reaches the antenna of the station, so this signal will be taken outward, and then from there an antenna will pick up the radio wave, and if the antenna is far from the transmitter, the signal is very weak, what we call the receiving transmitter. So you'll find if the receiving transmitter is far away, and mostly we know in a normal radio station is only able to transmit within 25 kilometer radius. So it means if it's far from that, it needs to have what we call boosters to be able to make sure that these signals are transmitted to far places. And that's why you see most of the stations, they only broadcast within a radius of 25 kilometer. That means 50 kilometer diameter. So if, for example, our Royal FM stations that is here, it can only transmit within 25 kilometer unless it is put under what we call boosters. But with the digital transmission, in nowadays, people even in US through internet, they can be able to get these signals. But remember, the transmission process is the same. Then the amplifier, now the receiving, will have now to amplify the weak signal that were transmitted through the air, and now they'll have to be transmitted again. Then the demodulator, that is the radio signal, is cut into half, since both halves of the signal hold the same audio information. Only half the signal is needed. So once it has been amplified, again it has to be demodulated. Remember, the first one was modulation to ensure that it's multiplied so that it can be able to travel over the air. But now our receiver doesn't need all of it, so it has to be demodulated. And the signal is fed through a filter. We need a filter to filter maybe some of the signals that had been fed when these signals were being transmitted over the air. So this removes the carrier from the signal. What remains is only the audio signal. So remember, we had inserted the carrier signal at the beginning. So now we have to eliminate the filter signal. If you can check your note properly, you'll be able to see that we have some signals there. Then finally, what are the filter? A filter is an electronic circuit that removes or attenuates from a signal some unwanted component of the feature. So once it receives this signal, it has to remove some of these signals that we do not want, because maybe they have been infiltrated by noise, etc. Then, of course, you at home now, or the listener at home, will be able to receive the information using a stereo receiver, what we call radio. So the audio signal causes the radio speaker diaphragm to vibrate, which creates sound waves, and a sound wave equivalent to present a voice radiate from the speaker. Basically, that is the process of that's a short video. I'll make sure that when I'm sending the note, I also send a video of the same that would have played so that you understand the whole process of transmission. But don't forget, transmission is a process of sending, propagating, and receiving analog, all digital information signal over physical point to point. And naturally, it's important to note that when you talk of radio, we are talking about transmissions of that signal that I've explained, from this microphone up to the stereo receiver at home. That is the whole process. And when you talk of radio, because there are two definitions, the transmission of signal, that process of transmitting signal, there is also the radio as a medium. So remember, in introduction to mass communication and other unit introduction one, you talked about media. Media, of course, is a channel, as a component of communication. But the singular form of media is medium. So radio is a medium, is one of the medium. Of course, we have other medium like television, magazines like this one, newspapers like this one, even books are all forms of media. But now we are specifically talking about radio as a medium. Remember, our unit is radio production, and it's important we understand. I know you may have talked about it in introduction to broadcast, and you may have talked about is radio, but it's important we do some refresher on what radio as a medium mean. So radio is a medium of disseminating information and music in form of sound. Now, what is radio production? Now, understanding radio is a transmission. It's maybe transmitting electronic waves, or it is also a medium of sending information or communication. So what is radio production? So if you check, now we have radio and we have production. So as we all know, production is the process of making something, be it in biology, be it in manufacturing, be it in even in economics. It's the process of turning raw material into a finished product. That is in economics. Now, when it comes to radio production, what is radio production? We actually say it's the process of chronological preparation of broadcast content before airing. So before I air a radio program, I have to prepare it. That preparation, that whole process of ensuring that the listener at home get the information as you may have wanted it, is what we call radio production. And it involves various processes, which I'll talk about them as importance of radio production, because when you asked what is the importance of radio production, because radio production help you to scripting, but even when you're doing radio production, when you're talking of chronological, as we said, radio production is chronological preparation. Just the same way a chef at the kitchen prepares food. That process of preparing whatever, it may be kaunga, it may be pirao, it may be bishibo, whatever he or she or you want to prepare as a chef, there is a process you follow. You cannot prepare kaunga by first pouring the portion inside. You boil water first. The same case with the radio production. There are chronological process that you follow. For example, you cannot transmit when you have not scripted for the program. So the first step is to script. I am assuming you have done all the other. Remember, the production process have three stages. We have the pre-production, we have production, and we have the post-production. Some of these things falls under those areas. If we talk of pre-production, you have identified whom do you need as a presenter. Remember, you need a good voice. Whenever he comes to this mic, whether you are preparing an advert, whether it's a show, whether it's news production, you need to have a good voice that is doing the production of that, the presentation of that program or whatever you're preparing. So you have to do all that. That's part of identifying the talent. That is all fall under pre-production. Identifying the idea of your program. If it's an advert, you have to think, what kind of an advert do I come up with? Think of the idea. If it's a show, what idea? If it's whatever news program, you have to have the content of what you want to do, what you want to cook in terms of the program. So I assume you all have that. So what you do scripting. Scripting is so important. You know, some people learn to radio and TV thinking, there I don't need to write. Presenters, you wake up early, you go through, do your research, so that you don't go on air and then you're blank. You have to do your research and script. And when you talk of the scripting, we may be talking about the program scripting, the croc, which I'll show you later, the croc format. Every second must be accounted for. Remember, airtime is money. So whenever you waste airtime on air, you're wasting money. So it is important you script your program. So after scripting, and scripting with its news, you have to script them properly. They have to be checked by the editor or the producer to ensure, the news editor, to ensure that they follow the guidelines of the station format. They also follow the legality, that is a legal requirement, if it's the ethical standard, etc. Scripting is so important, be it news scripting, be it program scripting, etc. Then after scripting, you need to record. If it's the presenter, you come in front of the mic. If you're two, you use the different mics. if it's pre-recorded, if it's being aired live, you can go on live, but you need to do some recording. So recording is that process of now, whatever you come on front of the mic. Remember, we talked about the microphone. You talk here, and then everything will be recorded. Once you have recorded, you have to edit. And radio production help us to know how to edit using different programs. I should be showing you later. Then, of course, packaging or mixing. You need to mix them. If it's jingles, you need to add some instrumental. If it's advert, some of them they may need some music in the background, etc. And then the final process, of course, is transmission. Sorry, that was a short break. Then, so the first step, as I've explained about editing. So this is a very important area or role in radio production, that is audio editing. Every recorded piece must be edited. This is done to get rid of unwanted material. This is done to get rid of unwanted material. We actually edit for so many reasons: to avoid repetitions, to remove errors, to remove omissions, and sometimes to add what you may have omitted. So, and also you have a quality recording. So, and every fresh recording will potentially require some form of cleaning, either by design or either by mistake. As it were, editing subsequently follow any recording. So once you have, before you edit, you must record. And mostly for us, there are different softwares that we'll be using. I'll be showing you. We have Adobe Audition, we have Cool Edit. There are so many other programs that you can use. And basically, when you open the editing, or when you record your sound, you have a face like this one. This is the audio recording. And of course, packaging or mixing, we actually use different processes of mixing. So for today, we'll only talk about that. Those are some of the importances of radio production. It helps you in doing scripting, recording, editing, and audioing, and packaging and transmission. In the next lesson, we'll be talking about what you call, we'll talk about characteristic of radio. It's also important I talk about it. Characteristic of radio, it's important I talk about this. Radio make pictures. What do you mean by this? Radio, remember, it's a bright medium. I'm seated here in front of this microphone, and the listener is listening me back at home. So I'm telling him that in the newspapers today, we are doing a press review on the newspaper today. Mount Kenya University Rwanda State of Art Complex is a game changer. So I have to make them see this building. I have to make sure that I create the image of this building to the listener's mind as a presenter. So you have to make sure that the listener, whoever is getting that message, get the image in the mind. Remember, it's a blind medium. Nobody sees whatever you are presenting, but you have to create that image in the mind of your listener. Then radio speaks to millions. Actually, what we say, even if I'm alone here, I'm speaking to multitude. There is no one anytime you'll think you're only talking to yourself, but you are basically targeting millions. So when you go out here, I'm not saying you speak like you're speaking to many people. Actually, the trick for writing to radio writing, you write like you're writing for one person. My dear listener, even if you're addressing millions, but you have to be careful. You have to ensure at the end of the day you satisfy all of them. Then, as we have said, you speak to millions at the same time. But unlike a newspaper that maybe only one person can read at a time, radio, many people can be able to listen at the same program at the same time. But now it speaks to an individual. As I was saying, speak like you're talking to one person. My dear listener, not listeners. Don't say listeners. It is my dear listener. That's why most of the presenters, you hear them saying, oh, my dear listener there. You think maybe these guys, they are mad. No, they are not mad. It is true. Speak like you're speaking to an individual. Don't speak like you're speaking to multitude. You don't say audiences. One audience. You are talking to one audience at a time. So whatever program you are holding. So if you are explaining people about this game changer building in MKUL, you don't have to tell them, oh, all of you come and see. No, come. I know you are there. We are looking for you. So you are speaking to one person, and maybe whatever you are trying to address, you'll be addressing to one individual. Then radio has no boundaries. Unlike maybe books that can be denied because of geographical and boundary locations, radio has no boundaries. I can enter in someone's bedroom. How? When he opened to me, to my radio station, when I'm here in the radio studio, I'm actually going to his boundary. So I've gone against the boundaries. So radio has no boundaries in terms of signals, as long as the signals, those who live near boundaries, they understand this well. Sometimes you're able to get radio station from other countries as long as maybe their what you call their transmission kilometers, they are within those radius. Then the speed of radio, it's one of the fastest medium as compared maybe to newspapers and magazine. So if you compare radio with newspaper and magazine, radio is faster than newspaper and magazine. Then of course, the simplicity of radio. Radio is simple. If you want to start a radio station, you just need simple things like a mixer, computer, microphone. And nowadays, you don't even need these kind of big mixers. Sometimes you need M audio, that is a sound card, and maybe a computer with the internet. So it's becoming simple in terms of the production. A radio staff, in terms of staff, 5 staff are enough to run a very big radio station. Maybe presenters for 5 stations and a few reporters. Like you don't require so many as compared to newspapers, which has editors, sub-editors, reporters. It has so many other distributors, etc. Radio is simple in terms of learning, and it's also cheap as compared to other media. Even accessibility for the listeners back at home, they're able to access it at a cheaper price. So the learning cost of radio and of course the establishment of radio and even the accessibility of the receiver at home is cheaper as compared to others. Then radio has background. Of course, when you're presenting, mostly it allows even others people to work as they do others. The transient nature of radio. Radio is transient in nature. Radio can surprise. It can surprise the audience. As a presenter, you need to be somebody who is unpredictable, and you need to be creative. Remember, you're in competition with so many other radio stations. Radio teaches. It educates the listeners. When we'll be talking about the function of radio, we are going to see one of the function is to educate. And of course, radio can suffer from interference. It can be interfered with by signals, maybe sometimes they fail, etc. And then radio lacks space. Like newspaper, if you check this story, it can go even to 4 pages. Radio, you're only given 3 minutes to tell a story, maybe to tell a whole bulletin about 10 stories. So when it comes to lack of space, radio in terms of space, sometimes it lacks space because of the time, because you're only given a short period to tell your story. This is just an explanation. Brain medium, it can stimulate imagination. We talked about that, making pictures in the mind. I talked about speaking to an individual. You don't say good morning listeners, or you just address like you're addressing to one person. Good morning listener. It speaks to one person. Then radio has no boundaries. Books, magazines, they can be stopped in national frontiers and boundaries, which is not the case with radio. Radio is cheap in terms of the listener accessibility, which is affordable than maybe books which you need to buy every day. Nowadays, everybody has a radio, by the way. Both capital cost and learning expenses are small. So if you talk about the simplicity of radio, the basic unit comprises one person with a microphone and a recorder, rather than a crew which has camera, lights, sound recorders, etc., which may not happen in radio. The transient nature of radio, it's a very short-lived media. Once the story is told today, in maybe the next hour, that is no longer news. Maybe the other radio station have told it. You have to get new thing. Like the newspaper, which somebody can read the story. If he doesn't get it the first time, he will have to read the story. You only have one chance to hammer the point home to your listener. Then radio as a background, it allows the listener, it's more flexible with the user than maybe TV or print. Can you cook when you are reading newspaper? No. Can you maybe dig when you are watching TV? No. But you can go to shamba, you can farm when you're listening to your radio favorite radio station. So selective. Of course, we select the material at the studio. That is the selection process. The editor, etc., they select the content. Radio is unpredictable. That's what I say. It can surprise. It can be interfered with. Sometimes the airwaves. And it has personality, anger, pain, excitement. I want you to find out what we mean by radio has personality. I want to leave you there. In the next lesson, we'll talk about on-air radio softwares. These are some of them, like Edcast, Stream Encoder, Icecast, Pillar, CSZ license, Newsband, MP3 Gain, Audacity, Fidel Phone, Zara Radio, DJB Radio, and so many others. Thank you. Meet you next lesson. And if you have a question, remember our online platform. You can always ask question there. I'm also available through WhatsApp and even calling. We can interact. But let's use the online platform of e-learning. We do chatting and we do other things so that we can help each other. But basically, before I finish the lesson, it is important you note that this is a microphone. I'll be talking about the different types of microphone. Microphones are classified into three. We have what you call unidirectional, omnidirectional, and bidirectional. Uni means one. It's only a microphone that can receive sound coming from one direction. Then we have bidirectional microphone. That means it can speak sound coming from two directions. And of course, we have omnidirectional, a microphone that is able to pick sound coming from all directions. So the assignment for this week, which I want you to go and find out, is you find out the different types of microphones that Gava told you. We have classified them into three: omni, uni, and bidirectional. I want you to find out which is the example of unidirectional. And maybe you check the pictures. Nowadays we have online platform that can help you to find out that which are the examples of unidirectional, which are the examples of omnidirectional, which are the examples of bidirectional microphone, and what are the advantages of the microphone. When do we use an omnidirectional and when do we use a unidirectional? So this is a microphone. As I told you, it picks sound, and that's why I want you to do research on them. These are mixer. It have different what you call channels. These are 32 channels microphone, mixer that we usually use in our radio studio, and it is connected with a computer. And the computer that I have here have different software. Like one of the softwares that we'll be using is Adobe Audition. This is what I'll be using mostly. Of course, it comes with the different mates. For my case, I'm using CS6. Not for any reason. There is even CS17. I'll be teaching you how to go about this. This is, of course, is multi-track session. We need to have what you call recording session where with the single track mode where we do our recording, and I'll show you how we do recording using the Adobe Audition. So apart from Adobe Auditions, there are other softwares I told you. In our case, also for on air, we'll be using what we call Zara Radio. This is what we'll be using to do broadcasting. Of course, there are others like Jazzla and so many others that people use in different stations. So for today, thank you.